I want you to leave better than when you entered my room. Not that any of you are bad, because I don't believe that there's bad kids
No.
or good kids. I think there are kids who make poor choices.
Yes.
But I'm like, I want you to just be a better version of who you are when you leave my room. And I tell the parents that on back to school night too. Should we get started? Should we talk about some stuff?
Sure. Yeah, that's
Okay,
great.
so
Cool.
Suzanne Flower Power Maurer
Yeah.
with
Okay.
20 plus years of being a professional counselor. Now that's you know your stuff.
Uh,
Your mission is to be a safe, inclusive, and empathetic therapist and person. I love that because I tell my students that I care about you more as a person than as a student. So I like to
yeah.
separate those two out.
Yes.
And you want to know more and learn more about what you don't know so that you can provide more support to your clients wherever they are. You love bringing mindfulness and present focus into therapy, which can help with so many things. And I think that's hugely important right now as
Yeah.
well. With, I think anybody could really help with
For
that. Like
sure.
it helps everyone because we live in a very fast-paced world. We were all forced to slow down, but it's
Yes.
still very much fast-paced, especially Northern Virginia.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, so I have you on in order
Mhm.
to talk to my students, and I know that a couple parents also follow as well and colleagues, but just to talk about some of those anxiety and negative self-talk and kind of negative feelings that come in from being isolated for the year, just some coping strategies that students could benefit from. So by talking to students, I know at first they're really nervous about making friends and about grades. And it seems from talking with you that that's pretty common right now.
Yes.
What kind of things come up
I
as
think
strategies?
especially, yeah, especially for I think if we're talking, I mean throughout school, right? Even elementary school kids, especially older elementary, but especially middle where it is such a big transition from elementary to middle. It's a big physical development, social, emotional, physiological, all of that stuff is really hard to manage when you are it's hard to manage if you're a grown person, let alone an 11, 12, 13, 14
Mhm.
year old young person. Although I say that, but I also believe that our teens and preteens are like smarter beyond their years sometimes. So which I think is another thing that plays into that, right? So the first thing that I would say is for a young person, like don't dismiss your intuition, don't dismiss your anxiety. It is okay to have anxiety. Anxiety honestly does a lot of good things. You know, it helps you achieve, it helps you, but it also can be a lot to deal with, especially on your own. So don't ignore it, talk about it if you can. I would always say start small first, self-talk about it. Like, what am I feeling? Like, what is this? Is it anxiety? Also, there are other words for anxiety. There's stress, there's worry, there's panic. So those are all sort of the same in the same family. And then maybe is there somebody, a friend, you can just maybe mention a little bit too. You don't have to say everything if you're not comfortable. If there's certainly if you feel comfortable talking to a parent about it, but then also like don't forget that we also have other adult supporters, right? You can reach out to a teacher, an aunt or uncle, a family member, cousin, older cousin. So share it. Kind of sometimes getting it out of your head can be helpful. And then it's so surprising because you will hear, oh yeah, I dealt with that too. And kids will be
Mhm.
like, you did? I had no idea. It's like, oh yeah. And I'm still here. You know,
Mhm.
I'm okay. So that was a really long answer.
No,
But I
love
guess
it.
that's the first part
Yes.
is yeah,
I loved how you said like take notice. So it's
yeah,
not like it's not like, oh, well, whatever you're thinking, just like spat it out. But it's not really that. It's more internal. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that was a weird feeling. Why did I have that reaction to that
Mhm.
moment? And then start analyzing it even on your own. Just like, oh, wait. And then identifying that feeling. I feel like that puts so much more weight into the word rather than the feeling. So if you can
Yeah.
identify what you're feeling, then you can start to what's that word I'm trying to say? Compartmentalize.
Yes.
Like, okay, that's my stress box. I know that that stresses me out. So I'm going to put that over there. And like, this one
Exactly.
makes me feel good. So I'm going to put that one over there.
And that's okay to do. It's not, sometimes we talk about like suppression is this word, right? Suppress, where you kind of like, the feelings are there, but you push them down. That's not the same thing as compartmentalizing, right? Because you are able to say, you know what, these thoughts like aren't helping me right now. So I know what they are. I can say what they are, but I need to just sort of like table them right now.
Mhm.
And that's a good point because that's where sort of like the skills building comes in, because it is really scary to think about, oh my gosh, like I can't deal with this. I don't know what to do. That's okay for now, right? You can say, okay, I'm having these feelings, acknowledge them, maybe share it with somebody. Now let me find somebody or figure out a way that I can help myself. And the interesting part of that is a lot of young people do it automatically. They de-stress by listening to music, by, we do have, which can sometimes be tricky. We have a lot of access to, Hulu, Netflix, but there are some good shows on there that are distractions and can be helpful to sort of just say, I just need a break. So, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh,
You're
okay.
frozen on my screen, but I can still hear
I
you.
can hear you. Excellent. Okay. Well, that's good. So yeah, so that's okay, right? So sort of like acknowledge and then say, let me figure out what skills could help me. And like I said, a lot of kids already know, some skills. Although there's sort of a, consideration with going into helpful skills and unhelpful skills. So there's that too. You want to kind of assess that as well. Like, is this actually helping me? Or is this kind of maybe making things worse? And it's hard to know. It's good to bounce that off of people.
Yeah. I know that we mentioned some mindfulness. Is this the stage where mindfulness might come into play as well when you're trying to identify what kind of feelings that you're feeling? Would this
Yeah.
come into play or maybe journaling?
Journaling could certainly help. There are so many different mindfulness techniques you can do. So a couple of things that I would suggest. So it's more around like how to sort of manage, I guess, as you could use it as a skill. So one really easy thing to do is, and this is like the very start of mindfulness, is when you are maybe feeling overwhelmed or stressed and you're not sure what else to do in that moment. There are so many different things. So one is just 1 minute, counting down 1 minute, so 60 seconds, counting down by like twos or threes. So just giving yourself 1 minute. And so then the thing about the minute is that if you count down, so you could do it to 100 or 60, either one works. I like 60 because it's a minute. So you do 60, 57. It's just enough brain power to kind of distract you, but not enough that it like takes you to a different place altogether, because you still want to be present and aware of what the feelings are, right?
Right.
The other thing that you can do, and mindfulness is really about utilizing all of the senses. So
I know
right.
where you're going with this one. I know it.
Okay, so hopefully you do. So there's a few
Okay.
different ways to do this. There's a couple, right? So there's one that's the 5 4 3 2 1 trick. You know that one? Okay.
Like the
So
5 things that you see?
yes, exactly. 5 things that you
Yep.
see, 4 things that you hear. I always mess up like the 3 2 1.
Me too. Because you can also switch it too. You can say like one instead of like taste, then you can
Yeah.
say like one great thing about yourself.
Exactly. Or one grateful, or one positive experience, or
Yeah.
whatever. Which actually, so that is a very like definitely a mindful thing, because it encompasses your being, right?
Mhm.
Everything. The other thing is the observe skill,
Okay.
might be familiar with too, which is basically, I think it's helpful to do. You can do this in many different ways. If you have an opportunity to like step outside or look out a window,
Mm.
just observe. What do you see? I see a
Mhm.
green tree, and being very descriptive. So it's observe and describe. And again, it's keeping you present, but enough of a distraction to kind of maybe, if you were in a little bit of a excited or like anxious feeling, it kind of takes you down just a tad. And the whole idea, I think, of a lot of the mindfulness skills at this level are you're a little bit heightened. You just need to like take it down a little bit, right? Just enough where you
Yep.
can say, okay, you know, I'm ready to do my homework now, or I'm ready to go see my family for dinner, you know, but I was
Yep.
feeling a little bit anxious and now I'm feeling a little bit better and I can stay present.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's not anything that takes a super long amount of time either. It's just a
no,
quick
that's
check-in.
nice.
There
Exactly.
was,
Yeah, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna give you one more. So
Oh,
if you
go,
have,
go, because I have one too. So you go.
so the other one that I do like in it's called out loud noting.
Hmm.
So, and I kind of do a little bit of a twist on it. So it's nice because if I always have people put their hands kind of over their heart or their vagus nerve and
Hmm.
one hand on their belly, and you can actually say, because right when you talk like this, you feel the vibrations,
Hmm.
right? So it's physical, it's touch, it's auditory because you're hearing, and then you're going to say, you know, you could say something like, I'm feeling anxious. It's
Okay.
okay to feel anxious.
Hmm.
So I'm capable of getting through this anxiety or working through, or how whatever resonates with you. It can be
Yeah.
different. So it's just a little bit of an out loud noting thing. I think that's especially good too before you go do something, right? Like a reminder, an affirmation, which we could
Yes.
have a whole conversation about affirmations.
Oh my gosh, girl, we so can because I started writing affirmations for my biological children and
Okay.
putting it on their mirror when they go to
Yes.
bed. I'll put it on their mirror so they see it in the morning.
Yes.
And then my oldest took all of them, and I had so many that she covered the back of her door and she started keeping them and put them all over the back of her door. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I love that. And then with my younger one, she wanted to do the same thing. So I did alphabet. So I was like, A is for amazing. You are amazing. I was like, B is
I
for
like
brave.
that.
You are brave. Like all those. And then I actually did it with students too, where I had them choose a positive adjective that started with the
Mhm.
letter of their first name.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we did a whole thing. And then I actually have it if I like turn my screen. I told them to put it right next to their workspace. So, and we did a positive quote too, but mine
Okay.
is Amy the ameliorates. And that
Ah.
means to make something better.
Oh, nice.
I was like, yeah. And then I was having a hard day one day in class. And then that's when my other thing that I was going to bring up to you came into play. And it was a breathing technique. So it's like the triangle where it's like two, hold, breathe
Yep.
out. And what happened, and it was like so naturally introduced. So I had both of my girls, they suddenly came in, asked a question. I was in the middle of teaching, but then someone asked a question in chat, and then I was trying to write something down, like a lot. And I was like, I just
Yeah.
need one moment, guys. And I modeled it because it was an authentic experience. And my chat was so beautiful with my students. They were like, take your time, Miss Allen. It's fine. And they were like, Amy the ameliorate. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, guys, you're amazing.
That's
But
really
I needed it.
yes. Yes. The breathing, a couple of things. One, definitely the breathing. Sorry. Mindfulness. I should have started with that too. So thank
No,
you.
go. Yeah.
Mindfulness, and especially when you talk about the type of therapy that I pull a lot of skills from, it's called dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. I know
I
it's
got
a
to write that
mouthful.
one down.
So yeah, DBT. So DBT actually incorporates mindfulness as one of its like kind of modules, I guess you could say. And breathing is a big one, right? Breathing and meditation. Meditation is hard, right? It takes practice. I mean, but I believe that anyone can do it, even if it's just 1 minute or 2 minutes a day. But the breathing, I do like the same things that you did, like the box breathing. That's what I call it. So to and then also the same thing is reminding people This is especially helpful if you're kind of a little bit more heightened, a little bit more anxious than normal, is come back to your breath. Don't forget to breathe. It's such a
Mhm.
good reminder that, because the more oxygen you get into your body, the better you are. Like
Yeah.
when, if people have panic attacks, for example, or anxiety attacks, which can happen,
Yeah.
and come out of nowhere, the first thing you want to do is, okay, let's try to breathe, because a lot of the physical
Yep.
components of it is because your body's just not getting enough oxygen, and that alone can sometimes be really helpful, because they can be scary.
Yeah.
And it's so that's one. The other, oh my god, I mean, there's so many
So
mindfulness
many.
techniques, but then that's the nice thing about it, is that if one doesn't work for you, for your students, or for whoever it is,
Yeah.
you can try another one.
Yeah.
There's something that will help or work for most people. And then the next step would be, and I always say this, and this sounds very, like, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's not as therapist as I think, but you have to commit to doing this regularly. You have to commit to yourself.
Hmm.
Even you can be 12 years old, and you absolutely have it in you to do this. You can commit to yourself, because
Yeah.
that is going to go so far for you. Like at 12, at 15, at 20, at 25, these skills will build up, and you can handle anything that comes at you,
Yeah.
because you already say, I can get through hard things. I've done this before.
Hmm.
I know what it takes, and I can do it. So that's the same thing, like kind of committing to yourself, committing to some of these skills, practicing them, but also not getting down on yourself if you miss a few days of meditation,
Hmm.
right?
I was going to say, you can
Just,
always start over. You can always start again
yeah.
and give
Um,
yourself that allowance. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And know too, like, when is it important for me to ask for help? How will I
Mhm.
know? And I think you said there were some parents who, listen and watch.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, is boundaries. I know is so hard for parents, because on one level you want to just know everything and do everything and help, and on the other side it's like, well, I need to give them their space. Um, but as like cliche as this sounds, like, if you see something, say something, as a parent, because I think a lot of times kids, they might get annoyed. And I think as a teacher and as a parent, you are aware of this. Like, come on, mom. Oh my gosh. Like, get away, get out of my room. But like,
Yep.
secretly, they're like, I'm so glad she loves me. And I know.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that like makes me kind of get emotional. But yeah.
I I lead with curiosity.
Okay.
So if and I do this as teaching too. So let's say I suspect that there's cheating happening. I lead with curiosity. I noticed, and I like state what I noticed. I'm curious if you can explain. Like,
Yeah.
I don't ever say you were cheating off of so and so.
Yeah.
Because what if it was like they were completely done? Someone
Yeah.
needed like a word, like they didn't know what that meant, or they weren't even talking about the test. They were asking for a pencil.
Absolutely.
So lead with curiosity. I do the same thing with my biological kids. If there's
Yeah.
something that I think might be bothering them, then I'll say, I noticed. And then I
Yes.
say something and I'm curious about. So
Yeah.
I think if parents can lead with those prompts, then it's not going straight to the what you think is happening route. And that might come off a little pushy or judgmental or jumping to conclusions, but
Yeah.
it's more opens up a conversation because some of those conversations go in a completely different way than what I thought was happening. But that was
Right.
my reality. That wasn't the true reality.
Right. Same thing with parents going into a conversation with their young person, is, if you want to keep that line of communication open and support them through whatever they're going, do that same thing as a parent, is making sure, like, you're talking about the action or the choice and not them,
Mm-hmm.
because chances are they're acting out because they are depressed, potentially anxious about, everything that's going on that we had previously talked about: SOLs, transitioning to last year of middle to high school,
Yeah.
changing bodies, like
Social groups, everything.
sometimes you just, you want to react, or you're like, you still need to behave, you still need to be respectful, but it's like, where's this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to enable the behavior, you don't need to say the behavior is okay or appropriate, but allowing a conversation to happen and letting them sort of know that above anything else, you are there to help them, not to push them down.
Yeah.
And I think it is hard as a parent to know the difference between what they're thinking and what your intentions are and what they actually heard. Right.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too. I mean,
There's so many things.
Yeah, I know. There's so many things.
Because it's also like we can always say, oh, well, whatever you've been through, we've been through it too. But that's actually false because there's so many other things that our kids have to deal with that we never had to deal with. Like internet was barely a thing for me, like barely. So that actually leads me into one of the hardest issues that students had come back to me with was social media and the pressures of that, or the insecurities from what they see with body image. And that's like a whole can of worms.
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say as far as how to help is, the first thing is parents making sure, so this is on the parent side, just like know the sites. Because I hear all the time, well, I don't know, like, I don't go on this site. What is TikTok? What is Snapchat? Like, know the names of them, know what's on them, know about the content. Because, like, we know YouTube because we use YouTube, but some of the other ones, know Discord. So, like, try to keep up to date as a parent, because that will help the kid. For on the kid side of things, I'm exactly with you, is first remind yourself, like, is this real life? Are these posts really what this person looks like? Because generally they're not. And I know that's really hard for a young person to like wrap their heads around, but that's the first part of it. It's hard. That's a hard one because it's
that one's hard.
Yeah, it's hard for grown-ups to not read comments and make sure. But the other thing that I will say is for young people is to find, because technology is going to be here, social media platforms are going to be here, but there are ones where you can find like sort of a more supportive, like, and I'm using this word inclusive, environment that will actually be like, okay, like this group of people gets it.
Yeah.
As long as they're doing so in like a safe format and not giving information out and stuff like that. So safety is very important. But like, I have a lot of young people, clients who, they will go on Tumblr because they can find environments and they can find posts about everything from ADHD, anxiety and depression, to, gender spectrum issues or things like that. So that has been helpful. And then it's so hard, but like, if you're a young person, know why, like think about why your parents might limit your screen time with social media. They're not doing it because they hate you and they want to ruin your life, guaranteed. It is because it can be a bad thing, it can be unhelpful. So, right. So as a young person, I feel like I have real talks with them about, let's talk about like what's going on Instagram and who do you follow and different things like that, because it's also good. There are a lot of really positive people to follow. That are good distractions, that are, body positive, that are social justice, that are things that, you might be interested in, whose messages are, I want to say positive, but just also real and engaging and interesting and fun.
Yeah. I was going to say a large part could also be just their own personal filter. If someone is
Yeah.
not serving you, then they don't need to be taking up your energy. They don't need to be taking up your time.
Nope.
So give your energy to people that are worthy of your energy. Same thing with social media.
Absolutely.
If there's somebody that you follow, whether it be a celebrity or not, but all they're doing is ranting about this, and it's like they're so polarized that they
Yes.
can't see another view, then it's like, why would you purposely kind of like angst yourself a bit? Like
Right.
just hit unfollow. They won't notice.
They won't
There's
notice.
like millions of people, just little old you, just like move
Yes.
along.
They won't. And
That's hard.
I agree with you. It's very much around sort of like being able to first sort of like know yourself, right? And young people are capable of doing that.
Yeah.
They're still learning, but we're all still learning. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing like I have the power to remove toxic people from my life, right? Like you said, either in person or on social media. And that's another thing too, like the whole, they really won't notice if you unfollow them, but also even if it's a friend or a friend of a friend that is not, like you said, serving a purpose for you, if you unfollow this person, even if they're like, why did you unfollow me, in a year, is unfollowing this person going to matter to you?
No.
In a 6 months, certainly not in a year or 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you allow space to open up for people who can be there for you and be supportive and, maybe give you what you need, whatever that may be.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Because like time is the hottest commodity that you have.
Yep.
So don't waste it on people who don't deserve it. But
Yes.
also it's like, don't turn your back on a true friend who may just be having a bad moment.
Right. Well, right.
Know the difference.
For sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that also kind of goes up to something that we had talked about previously or before this, was like this, like self-esteem and acknowledging your self-worth and owning your self-worth, because that's something that's really important. It goes beyond social media, of course. And it's hard to assess that sometimes, but I think that there are always so this is another thing. It's not really a mindfulness, but it is a DBT thing. And it sort of goes along the lines of like a positive thing about you. But one of the things that I have my clients do is something called accumulate positive experiences.
Okay.
So it sounds like, okay, that's easy. I just do things that are fun, which is true. But it's also, part of it is staying present with the experience. It's like if you have plans to FaceTime with a friend or even do an in-person safe socially distanced visit, be there with that person in that moment, not right. Like, don't think about what you're going to do next. It's hard to do, but like really even acknowledge to the point of like, remember what color shirt they were wearing, or I don't know, stuff like that. Yeah, that's actually like staying there. And then as you sort of develop these things, right? And that also goes with like, have something to look forward to, which is good. So if you are kind of, going through sort of things that are a little more routine or regular in your day, have something to look forward to and then be in the moment with that. And then you can always reflect back on it to say like, wow, I'm so happy I did that. Like I was there, it was such a positive experience. And then when you're feeling maybe a little anxious or down, remind yourself, like, I'm capable of having positive experiences. I had one yesterday. And I know that because I was there, present with that person. So also that's like a work in progress, right? So being in the moment of something is hard, but the more you practice it and you commit to it, really committing to like yourself and your well-being is what we're talking about.
I think I did it last year. I didn't do it this year with students, but we chose words for the year. And it's a pretty common thing to do, but my word was intentional. And I said for me, and I always role model the things that I want to show students, just so it's not like, hey, I'm just telling you to do it, but it's like, it's good practice for me too. But I chose the word intentional, and it was that I always felt like when I was at school, I'm like, go, 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 go. But then after school, I was like checking email, I was lesson prepping, I was like doing all these things, and it was supposed to be my time with my kids.
Yeah.
And so I made the word intentional so that I know I put away my phone.
Hmm.
I'm not even going to take pictures of them at soccer. Like I'm just going to like live the moment.
That's
I'm
good.
not going to do it. Now, of course, I fall sometimes, as we all do, but it was one of those where like I had them like print out a picture and put the word below it and then hang it somewhere. So it was very visual, which I think
Yes.
helps too. So if you have
Yes.
something that you're working towards, I think printing it out and having it somewhere that you can daily remind yourself of
Yes.
is always good to do too. And being
Yeah.
present, love that. I had dinner with a girlfriend just the other day, and 3 hours like that, because we were just like back and forth, back and I never looked at my phone. I didn't
Yeah.
even look. I don't even know who else was in the restaurant. We were
That's
just like in the zone. But 3 hours, I was like, I gotta go put my kids to bed. Like I gotta go.
yeah.
But I love that. Like to be purposeful, intentional, present in the moment is
Yeah.
such good things. I want to touch on one more thing, but then I
Sure,
know like I'm going to have to go and you're going to have to go, I'm sure. Or the internet will force you to leave me. I'm not sure.
For real.
Um,
So,
one more thing, negative self-talk.
okay.
And I want to tell you something that I do, and then we can kind of pick up from there. So
Okay.
I don't, if there's ever something that my students say negative about themselves or about someone else, then I force them to do 5 put-ups. So 5 compliments.
Oh, I love that.
And
Yes.
I try it with my own kids. So now they just don't say very many negative things, which is the point. Like that's the
Yes.
point. Like just don't say negative things. But I will stop class. I just did it today with a student because
Yeah.
he put himself down. And I was like, oh, put ups. But now my students kind of police each other because I've had this lesson with them already. So they're like, put ups. Like you could just see it in chat, put ups, put ups. And so I have them do 5. And I put the science behind it too.
Yeah.
With my lesson, I said it takes 5 positives to negate that negative in your brain. So
Yes.
if they say it about somebody else, it's 5. If they say it about themselves, it's 5. If they say the same put down, it's a new 5. Like it's, and I'm not doing it to torture them, but I want
No.
them to be conscious of there's so much good. You
Yeah.
gotta go with the good. Like get the negative crap out of there.
Right.
So give some more advice for when
Yeah.
that negative, because it always happens, but that negative kind of self-talk starts creeping in.
So
What can students do?
I do like, sorry, I do
You're
like
fine.
that, the 5 put-ups. And I like the add-on to that too, because that is something like well, okay, so one thing is I do a lot of like cope ahead plans with my clients. So it's basically, it's a week ahead where there's something very specific, 1 to 3 things that you can list out that are going to give you the most stress for the week. So the one thing is nice because this isn't stressors forever. These are things that you're going to focus on this week. We can't fix every week, but we can focus on these 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start sort of like coping skills for those specific stressors. So for example, it might be, sports tryouts this coming week. So what am I going to do? And then the coping skills, some of them are very like tangible, right? I'm going to practice. That's changeable, but right. So I'm going to practice a little bit. And then positive self-talk is the other one. So sort of preparing yourself to say, this is a coping skill that I'm going to be using. And then later on in the cope ahead plan, okay, like what's your affirmation for the week? And let's try to relate it back to what your goals are, right? So it'll be like, I'm capable of making the varsity team. So it's one put up, right? But it's also an affirmation. Whenever you kind of get down, be like, remind yourself, like, this is all I have to do. This is my only affirmation for the week. So that's one thing that kids can do, young people can do, is just sort of like set an intentional put up for yourself, which I like for the week, to sort of combat. So you don't have to manage them all, right? Let's just focus on one small thing right now. It
It's
could
kind of
be,
like a reset, really. Like
yeah,
you feel it creep in and you're like, okay, what's my reset for this week? Okay, my reset phrase or word for this week is uh chupacabra. I don't know. So then when you're like, okay, chupacabra. Okay, now I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm back. I'm back. I'm not gonna let that
exactly.
happen.
Oh my gosh. I actually, to that point, I actually love having a random word that
Oh.
will, when you're in a situation, will kind of make you smile. I just did this with somebody, and I was like talking about like sort of the observe skill, and I was like,
Mhm.
just look at a tchotchke, and they were like, what? So immediately I was like, your word is going to be tchotchke.
Yep.
So when you're in an uncomfortable situation, you're feeling anxious, tchotchke, right?
Yeah.
Really, it was like, I'm capable of handling this
Mhm.
situation, or this is temporary is also something that works well.
Oh,
But in that moment, yeah, this is
temporary.
temporary. So if that's especially good if the self-talk is around like tests or something
Yes.
very specific that will be temporary. By next week, this will be over. So that's one thing about it. The other thing that I do that's a little bit more, I guess, involved, is we all have these things, especially with negative self-talk, that I call like challenging thoughts or stuck points. So when you think about things that you do regularly, sometimes, like, well, most of the time, similar negative things will come up, right? Like I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not pretty. Those kinds of things will come up. So what you do is you sort of say, okay, I think about this a lot. Let me like figure out why, like what's going on. And so the first question you ask yourself is this thought like something that I is just like a habit for me now? Or is it based in something that actually happened, like a fact,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So is it based in habit or fact? And usually that alone, and it's helpful to have somebody professional take you through this, but you can certainly do it on your own, where you're like, no, I'm just so used to putting myself down. I don't even remember like why it started, and
Mm.
or it could be somebody saying this to you and that's why you're getting it. But you can say, well, actually, I get good grades, so I am pretty smart,
Mhm.
or like whatever it might be. And it's just a habit of mine. And you can work on habit. We break
Yeah.
habits. It's tough. We can do it.
Mhm.
So that can be helpful. The other thing is there's a whole page long set of questions with the stuck point or challenging. I won't get into all of them. However, I'm happy to send this information. So
Okay.
if you have anybody who's interested in taking a look at it, they can kind of take themselves through it.
Mhm.
Because like one of the other questions about negative self-talk is your stuck point like excluding information? And that kind of goes back to like, well, yeah, actually, because I am really good at soccer. I'm really good at gaming. Or I read stories to my brother or sister or sibling at night. Like I'm a good person.
Mhm.
So you don't take into consideration, you just might be seeing it from one perspective. So that's another thing to use to combat those negative self-talks and then or self-talk. The other thing is the same as like practicing it, like like you do with your girls, like post it every single place possible. Look at these things every single day. You are beautiful, you are loved, you
Mhm.
are capable of getting through this, all of them. Progress, not perfection,
Love that one.
favorites. So all of those, like put them everywhere, put them on your phone and read them every day. Because like you had said this before too, or along those same lines, like if you don't believe it, give yourself an example, like go a little bit further. If you're like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm not feeling this, but you know what? Like I have made it through tougher days,
Mhm.
so I can make it through today and that's it and go forward with your
Yeah.
day. But it's a little cognitive behavioral, right? So if you feel it, you will start to behave it and you will start to, kind of develop alternative automatic thoughts. Wow, that was
Yeah.
really sorry,
No,
very
I like that. You should copyright that one. I like that one. I like write it down or just listen to the recording after.
Well,
Write that down. I like that one.
yeah,
You brought up a couple things that I really liked. One was the perception, and we just got done talking with my students about creating that false narrative where a
yeah,
lot of arguments are because like you interpreted it this way, that person interpreted it that way, but
yeah.
which one actually happened? Because mine's based off of my experiences, theirs was based off of their experiences.
Mhm.
So if I take a step back and can see what actually unfolded or where they were even coming from, then
Yes,
I can avoid that argument. Or if it's to yourself, you can avoid that negative feeling where you're like, oh, I mean, they cut me off in the hallway, but they were running to the bathroom. Like they had a bloody nose,
right.
like whatever it
Yes,
may be, where it's not like, oh, just cut me off in the hallway. And
right.
then it's automatically a problem. It's
Yes.
taking that extra moment, but that takes practice.
I know it does. You're right. It absolutely takes practice, but that's also something that like everything takes practice. We had to
Always.
practice to learn how to walk, to
Yeah.
talk, to feed ourselves,
Yeah.
to use the bathroom. So
Yeah.
we can do it now for the most part.
I
Um,
told them that the first time you do anything, you suck at it. And I was like, my first couple podcasts, I suck, but I just started. I was like, the first time you try to ride your bike, you're gonna suck at it. Okay, you're gonna fall. First time you try to walk, you're gonna suck at it. But if you keep trying and you keep going, like you will eventually get there. No one is born an expert in anything.
no.
You have to practice it. And
Yeah.
consistency. I loved that you said that earlier, was the consistency part. And I
Yeah.
think that goes with anything, any kind of skill. Even if you want to like right now, I'm not very consistent with working out, but I can always start over every
Yeah.
day. I can always start over, and every little bit gets me to wherever I want to be.
Yes.
So a little bit at a time.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's true. And the other thing too about that is if you find yourself, and this is, obviously I have to say this because this is what I do for a living, is there are people out there who want to be supportive and to want
Yeah.
to hear your stories and to want to help you with your narrative. It could be a counselor, it could be a school counselor, it could be a teacher. But like I say this, like you are not alone, no matter what you're going through. It is
Mhm.
unique to you,
Mhm.
but there is someone out there who absolutely wants to hear your story and help you in whatever way they can,
Totally.
even if it's just listening. So
Totally.
it's yeah.
I love all of this. Okay, I feel so good. I'm like, ooh, I feel so good.
So
Um,
relatable now. You got
so
it.
I'm gonna get contact information from you, or I could use the same one. But if any of my students kind of reach out and go, "Oh, I really liked her. I'd like to ask her more about whatever, whatever,"
Yeah.
then yeah. But any last closing thoughts? This
Oh
was
my
so good. I feel so good. I'm
God.
jazzed.
I feel like I feel like I might have just said it all previously in that one closing.
Now let's just hope it
But
recorded.
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like I don't know. There's so much. Like I really think that it's so important. Like you're not alone thing
Mhm.
is such an important thing for teenagers to understand that like even though I don't know what you're going through, like I can, like I think I might have said this, like I can hold space for you even if I
Yeah.
can't, even if I don't understand what you're
Mhm.
going through. Like,
Mhm.
and there are people who will do that for you. And even though I feel like we are very culturally individualistic, like not everybody has to be like that and everybody wants to be like that, and that's okay. So
Yeah.
that is at that point where you want to say, I need help, and you are so much stronger for asking for help
Yeah.
than not. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
And
that's one thing too.
I'm really thankful that therapy and a lot of things are getting more normalized, which
Yes.
I love. Personally, I think everyone should have a therapist because you just feel so good afterwards. Whether you even go into a session wanting to even talk about anything, you're like, I got nothing, like nothing happened this week. And then you just
Yeah.
start talking, you're like, oh my gosh, so much happened this week.
Yes.
So
I
I think it's
mean,
good for anybody.
I agree. I mean, I think too, for teenagers, like that's another thing. There doesn't have to be something super major going on
Yeah.
or something you're really struggling it with for you to seek it out. It could just be, I'm not your parent.
Hmm.
I'm an objective person who is a grown up who you
Hmm.
can talk to, and I'm not going to be judgy. I might sometimes, ask questions about choices like a parent, but at the end of the day, I'm going to encourage you and be there to support you through those decisions because that is so important. And really like fostering your own independence because at some
Yeah.
point in your life, you will have to make those tough choices. We all do.
Mhm.
So that's something that is really important and your individuality. So,
I just thought of one other thing.
yeah.
Um, let's say someone does want to come speak to you. They are under 18. How does that work with something that they reveal to you and
That's a
they're
good
under
question.
18?
So normally the way that I work it with my teenagers who are younger than 18 is I usually do an initial session with the family, with the parents or parent, whatever it is, or guardian. And I will say, this is how I like to work therapy with a minor
Mhm.
is I really like to keep it as confidential as possible, but there are reasons, of course, that I will disclose information,
Mhm.
right? One is certainly safety
Yep.
concerns. But I will also say I will encourage now, if it's an immediate crisis, safety concern, yes, I will say something sooner.
Mhm.
If it is, let's figure out a way where we can talk about this with your parents together, and I can support you with that. That's something we can do together, so that you're supported, you're not alone, whatever. So I will disclose safety. Usually, I also will disclose like diagnosis, which sounds very clinical, but generally parents like to know that, even
Mhm.
though it doesn't always matter.
Yeah.
And then the third would just be treatment planning because I think it's important for parents to be involved in treatment planning. Um, yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Okay.
think that's important too, because that might hinder someone from reaching out. I have
Yeah.
very similar standards too as a mandated reporter. I was like,
Yeah.
you tell me anything. I can't solve a problem I don't know about.
Right.
However, these are my I will go tell someone situations.
Right. Right. Right.
And it's always safety.
Yes.
That's when I go tell someone. I was like,
Yes.
anything else we can probably just talk about in house. But if I feel like it needs to go to the next level, I'm not going to hesitate and we're going to go. And I will go with you if you wish,
Right.
but
Exactly.
I will go. I don't want to ever feel like you can talk to me about anything and that I will never say anything
Right.
because I
And
care
also,
about you.
right. Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. The meaning behind it is because we care, because we want to keep you safe. We want to
Yep.
keep you here. So at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's what I want, so we can keep on working together, right? So yeah, so that's the same kind of thing, but I really do try because it's important to
Yep.
feel comfortable and safe and
Absolutely.
confidential. So,
And to be that person that they confide in.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I feel so good. We
Yeah,
could do this so long. You know how like we could just keep going and
we
going. Maybe
totally
we'll
could.
do a part. You know what? Let's see what traffic we get on this, and then we may just have to come up with a part two.
Yeah, let me know. I'd be like, especially if kids have very, not specific so that they know who asked it, but if there is like a situation and we
Mhm.
could talk out, I also think it's helpful getting a teacher's perspective, even for myself, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't generally confer with teachers unless there's like an IEP or 504.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice from mine, to
Yeah.
kind of
Hey,
go,
if you need me,
yeah,
you got
hey,
me, girl.
fire it
I'm
up.
all yours. Whatever you want, because that's the goal, right? Is to like every person should know that they are cared for, that they are wanted, that they are valued. Like
Yes,
I want you here. I see you. Like I
yes.
want you here. And that's kind of what this whole thing is about is to
And
like nobody, like you said, nobody is ever alone.
no,
Never.
yeah, true.
Chef's kiss.
Got the feels.
We got all
Yep.
the feels. Okay,
Yep.
honey, I will talk to you
Okay.
later.
Sounds
And
good. Yes.
have a
Thank
great
you.
You're
Thank you
welcome
for
so
your time.
much.
Sorry
Thank
about the
you.
technology late. I know your time is valuable, so I appreciate that. So
Well, as is yours, and I super appreciate you.
good. All right. Have a good evening, and yeah, we'll talk.
Yes, yes. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Really high standards for students, but I reward generously when you meet that standard. And I come in hot, and it's who I am, and I will love the crap out of you.
Yeah.
But if you mistake my kindness for weakness, I put you in your place immediately.
Yes.
And then we're good. Because
Don't
you, I always lead with kindness and respect.
Yeah.
And that's the foundation of anything.